5 Live Formula One.
It's been an intense triple header in Formula One from Imola to Monaco, and now we arrive in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. It's round 9 of the Formula One World Championship. We are moments away from qualifying around a track every driver knows like the back of their hand, having spent countless days testing here over the years in Formula One cars and more. Beautiful conditions too, with the sun beating down, blue skies overhead, and a fight is on for pole position. Guiding you through every lap is myself, Harry Benjamin, and alongside me is former F2, F3 and Alpine F1 development driver Ollie Caldwell. Ollie, I say fight is on for pole, but after FP3, Oscar Piastri looked pretty dominant, half a second clear of Lando Norris.
Yeah, we got some new regulations coming in for this weekend, meant to potentially slow down the McLarens, as some teams have said, but it was McLaren on top in all 3 practice sessions with a very dominant Oscar Piastri, half a second ahead of his teammate Lando Norris in second.
Yeah, that gap might come down because Lando Norris made a mistake actually on his first flying lap, and actually struggling with a bit of the old porpoising that was rearing its head during the final practice session. But let's see, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc could well try and throw a spanner in the works, although it looks like they really are vying for more of a second row shootout. We shall see, but of course we'll go through the 3 sessions. Q1 first up, which will get going at the top of the hour. We will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers from the session. But looking forward around this track, just over 4.6 kilometres, 2.8 miles, 14 turns, 6 to the left and 8 to the right. You're reaching speeds of north of 320 kilometres an hour. Ollie, it's a track that you've raced at countless of times. You've won here as well around Formula 3. What does it take for a perfect lap?
It's a hard track. It's got a nice mix of medium and slow corners, and then the high speed of T3, and then those newish last 2 corners of 13 and 14. It's a track where you can be on the edge. There's a fine margin between being on the track, and they've got a little bit of runoff here at most corners before dipping into the gravel. It's a track where you can slide the car around a bit, especially through T7 and T8. That's a couple of corners there where we've seen people sliding around and still doing a good lap, but like most tracks, the car is on edge here in all of the sectors, and it will be who can put it on edge most without dipping a wheel into the gravel or making a mistake.
Indeed. Michael Schumacher with the record of the most pole positions around this track with 7, the most wins too, but he's tied with Lewis Hamilton on 6 apiece for that one. Indeed, the same for podium places. Hamilton and Michael Schumacher tied with 12. If Lewis Hamilton is to get a podium come the checkered flag on Sunday and take that total up to 13, it will become one of his most successful tracks, joint with Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. But it's a long run down into turn 1, a right-hander, the first dose of DRS as well. Then you sweep through the left-hander, and then it's a long, sweeping, committed corner through the right-hander of turn 3. Short blast to the braking zone of turn 4. Again, you swing through another right-hander and come back on yourself almost. Then it's a touch of the brakes into 5, a left-hander. Downhill now you go through the slight left kink of 6, then uphill through 7 and 8, heading slightly right before you get to a blindingly fast corner. Turn 9, mid-speed, mid-corner. You're going about 250 kilometres an hour before you get to the next dose of DRS. Got to be careful on the exit here too. One snap and you will find yourself in the gravel. Get that dose of DRS, head towards the tight hairpin at turn 10, which curves round to the left and then gets to a bit of the tricky part of the lap in that final sector, sweeping back round through turn 12. Saw a few cars struggling there on the exit in FP3, finding the gravel on the exit, and then it's 2 right-handers that see off a lap of this Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, as the drivers are now preparing themselves, getting ready for that green light, which is less than a minute away, to bring you up to speed with how the championship standings lie coming into this round. It's Oscar Piastri who leads in the drivers' standings. 3 points though is the gap after Lando Norris cut that down with his win in Monaco last weekend. Max Verstappen still in this in 3rd. He's 22 points back from Lando Norris, but a race win would see him go to the top if Piastri or Norris somehow fail to score. Russell is 4th with Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 5. And over in the teams, well, it's a slightly different story. McLaren with a healthy advantage at the top, 172 points the gap they have over Mercedes. Then it's Red Bull, Ferrari, Williams looking good with 54 points to their name and heading that best of the rest battle with Haas just behind them. Racing Bulls moved up to 7th after 2 point scores from both drivers in Monaco. Monaco ahead of Aston Martin, Alpine and Sauber 10th and last, but all teams off the mark in this Formula One season, one of the longest in Formula One history. Same as last year, that spell continues as you hear the sounds of engines revving up. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane, and we are go for qualifying one. Ollie, who do you think is in danger for this Q1 session?
We've seen a few teams being in the depths of the practice sessions so far. I'd say some teams that could be on edge are Alpine. They seem to have really been struggling, potentially with these new regulations that have come in. Both Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto have been down sort of 16th and last between them in the practice sessions. Kick Sauber, I would normally say, would be struggling to get through to Q2. However, they've been up in practice 2 and 3 between both Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg. They've had a good practice between them. So, yeah, a bit of a change in the midfield. I'm sure there might be one or two surprises of who gets through and who doesn't.
Well, pole position went the way last year of Lando Norris, but didn't get off to the best of starts in the end for the Brit during the race. But as we say, we've got to get 2 rounds of qualifying done before we get into that pole battle. Out on track, Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, Franco Colapinto's Alpine, Esteban Ocon's Haas, Alex Albon's Williams, and Oliver Behrman's Haas as well. All out there on the soft tyre. Worth noting as well, Pirelli bringing the hardest compound of tyre for this track, the C1 hard, the C2 medium, and the C3 soft. We know it's a hot track as well, Ollie, so that's going to have an impact on the degradation, especially after one hot lap.
Yeah, speaking of the weather and the temperatures in Barcelona, it's 29 degrees air temperature with a 48 degree track temperature. Pretty similar, to be honest, as it's been all weekend. But yeah, very hot for both of those, and a track that is high on degradation, not just for the surface of the tarmac that cuts into the tyres, but also because it's a hot weather, they're getting thermally hot as well. So teams have been struggling with rear deg on the rear axle, and yeah, struggling with that hard compound especially.
The wind as well was something that was really a bit all over the place in FP3, wasn't it? So what kind of corners could that catch a driver out?
It's going to be more the high-speed corners where, you know, if there's a sudden gust of wind or the wind direction changes, it will catch you out. We saw Oliver Behrman spinning at T3, Lando Norris going wide at T9, and they're the ones where, you know, the car has the biggest aerodynamic load on it. If the wind suddenly changes around and unloads the car in a way you weren't expecting, then that will be where it catches you out the most.
Well, just 4 or 5 cars out on the circuit at the moment. The sound you're hearing is Esteban Ocon in his Haas, making his way through turn 8, the left-hander, slight kink to the right, uphill now, flat as you dare through the right-hander of turn 9, the gravel to your left, 7th gear on the dash, hits the revs, gets it up to 8 before he slams on the brakes into the left-hander of turn 10. Tricky corner this because it drags you out almost, dangerous. You could put all 4 wheels past the white line and then you have violated track limits and your lap time will be deleted. Esteban Ocon keeps it neatly within the confines of the track, and before you know it, he's being spat out of the final corner, the right-hander of turn 14, and across the line for Esteban Ocon. It's a 1:14.0. Colapinto with the fastest time so far, a 1:13.8 for the Argentine driver.
Yeah, you can really tell here who might be struggling to get through to Q2 because there's only, 5 cars out on track and the rest are all just chilling in the pit lane. So Lance Stroll, Franco Colapinto, Esteban Ocon, Oliver Behrman and Alexander Albon feeling the need to get out on track straight away and set a lap time.
Yeah, it's been a tricky weekend for the Williams duo so far. Alex Albon is about to come towards the end of his first lap. Let's see what he does as he crosses the line. Goes second fastest in the first sector and the last sector. It's actually Stroll now who goes to the top of the times, but nothing between them. A 1:13.699, Albon with a 1:13.745. But for the 2 Williams drivers, well, Alex Albon had to miss out on FP1, also had a bit of an issue towards the end of FP3, which the team were investigating. That curtailed his running. So Albon's down on track time. Equally, Carlos Sainz as well. Just seems that the team, this high-speed nature of the track, perhaps exposing some of the flaws within this Williams car. But of course, Williams actually haven't got the best track record here either.
Yeah, the Williams has been struggling this weekend. It could be for a factor of things, whether it's the new changes or, like you say, it's just a track that doesn't suit them, as James Vowles also had said. But yeah, not great for Alex Albon, missing FP1 to let the rookie of Victor Martins in, but then having that issue in FP3, perhaps that's why he's out, just checking everything's okay. Yeah,
as the track starts to get busy, just a reminder that coming into this weekend is the technical directive that has been brought in, all to do with the flexing of the front wings of all the cars. The permitted level of flex, how much a front wing is allowed to, has been reduced by 5 millimeters, from 15 millimeters of movement down to 10 millimeters of movement when a load is applied to it. This has been brought in to, we believe, the request of Red Bull, who've been pushing for it to try and maybe perhaps hinder the advantage that McLaren have, although McLaren have been quite bullish in saying, well, it's not had any effect on us and we don't think it will have an effect. And so far, although the jury's not yet out, it's not completely shaked up the order yet.
No, we'll see obviously at the end of the weekend how it really does affect things, but yeah, Red Bull and Ferrari pinning quite a lot of hopes on this new change, but McLaren putting them to shame and to rest with that, going P1 in all of the practice sessions between both drivers.
Well, the top 5 who are all out there straight away and are back into the pits. Stroll fastest ahead of Albon, Colapinto, Ocon and Behrman, the only 5 drivers to have set a lap time now, but the rest start to peel out of the pits too, just waiting for Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Alonso and Hamilton to exit their way out, but of course some of them driving rather slowly in the pit lane to find themselves a suitable gap out onto the circuit as they now head out onto the track. Everybody of course going out there on the softest rubber available to them, the C3, the Red Bull soft tyre. And you know when one of the Spanish drivers comes past you, because you can hear the grandstands, which are absolutely packed out around this circuit, the Barcelona Catalunya, clapping, waving and cheering for both Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. Could this be the weekend that Fernando Alonso gets his first points of the season? Well, before he can get points, he'll need to qualify well too. But his last 2 qualifyings, well, both inside the top 6. So it's been pretty decent in the last 2 weekends for the Spaniard.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso been doing a great job in qualifying over the last few weekends. Unfortunately, he just hasn't had the luck in the races with some technical issues and just bad luck in general. He'll be hoping to put that to rest at his home race and in front of his home fans.
The sound of Nico Hülkenberg looked a little better in FP3, did the 2 Sauber drivers. Nico Hülkenberg, a 15-year veteran of Formula 1 now, making his way in that green Sauber out over the hill at turn 12. The first of the right-handers, which replaces the old tricky chicane we used to have a couple of years ago. That's long gone to a track now the drivers much prefer. Fastest in the final sector for Hülkenberg sees him now go to the top of the timings, with Carlos Sainz though now fastest of anybody in the first sector, but that has been taken away because we're seeing what McLaren are going to bring to the party in these early stages. Lando Norris fastest of anybody in the first sector. Liam Lawson's having a decent lap as well actually in the Racing Bulls. A reminder, this is Q1 with 10 minutes remaining of this session. We're focusing mainly on the battle to get yourself out of the bottom 5 places. The slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated come the end of this session. Lawson to the top of the times, a 1:13.482. We'll see what Sainz and Antonelli and Norris have all got, but the track improving all the time. This is a track, Ollie, where we see a lot of evolution throughout the course of a weekend.
Yeah, definitely there's a lot of evolution from the beginning of pre-practice 1 as more and more cars drive. Obviously Formula 3 and Formula 2 here this weekend, so that's putting down fresh Pirelli rubber during the time that Formula 1 is not on the track, and then as the teams ramp up their downforce and their engine modes to get them eke out a little bit more throughout the qualifying session, we'll see them go quicker as well.
Lando Norris now to the top of the times. Worth remembering that the fastest Q1 time last year was a 1:12.143. Norris with a 1:12.799. Currently the fastest lap time as George Russell comes across the line 7/1000ths of a second away in second. Hadjar puts himself up into third. Yuki Tsunoda has just come onto the radio saying to check the floor for damage. So I wonder if the Japanese driver in that second Red Bull has perhaps had a little off somewhere. He hasn't been happy all weekend so far. Had a bit of a loss as to where his pace may be. Tsunoda hoping to try and turn around that fortune that he's currently experiencing in the second Red Bull. as Oscar Piastri puts himself to the top of the times.
Yeah, not what you want for Yuki Tsunoda to potentially damage the floor this early into the session, and in Q1, especially when he's been struggling to match the pace of his teammate Max Verstappen. Could have happened in a number of places. There's a particularly sharp, rough curve on the exit of that high-speed T9 where if you run wide, those sort of jagged, sharp teeth can rip up the floor, and not what you want in a ground effect car.
Fernando Alonso goes inside that top 5. Got a nice toe, actually, did Alonso at the start of his lap from the back of one of the Ferraris. Speak of Lewis Hamilton, has just crossed the line in 6th. He was actually at a loss at the end of FP3 and at a loss of gears. It seemed like he'd ran out of them as Leclerc, running low in that Ferrari, kicking up the dust around the final corner as the floor scrapes along the asphalt, puts himself up into 4th. But a bit of a disparity between the two Ferrari drivers. Leclerc 4.5 tenths adrift of Piastri's quickest time. Hamilton almost 7 tenths adrift.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton not been too happy with the feeling of his Ferrari this weekend. We saw him in free practice too, having quite a lot of moments on his push lap, but so was Charles Leclerc, and he was able to just put the lap together a little bit better, and that seems to be continuing on.
Max Verstappen, we have yet to see what the reigning champ has up his sleeve for this first flying lap through the left-hander of 10, right on a knife edge with where his wheel is compared to the white line, but inch perfect from the Dutchman out over the hill at turn 12, flat through the right-hander of 13, kicks up a bit of dust as he turns in for the final right-hander of 14, and across the line manages to split the two McLarens, but still 2.5 tenths away from Piastri.
It's incredible seeing the onboards of these cars now going through the reprofiled last two corners of T13 and 14, how they can just throw it in at such high speed and the car just grips up. Really makes for some impressive viewing, and also I know the drivers love it after taking away those slow speed chicanes.
So 6.5 minutes left then, all cars with their first laps done. It's Piastri quickest with a 1:12.551. Then it's Max Verstappen 2.5 tenths back. Norris, Russell, Leclerc the top 5. Albon, Alonso, Hamilton, Hadjar, Behrman the top 10. Colapinto is 11th ahead of Antonelli. Gasly is 13th ahead of Stroll, with Liam Lawson rounding out that top 15. And at the moment it's Nico Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda and Gabriel Bortoleto who find themselves in that elimination zone. They will all need to go again, but I tell you what, the entire field covered by just over a second.
It'll be interesting to see now who feels safe enough to not do another run in Q1 versus who has to bolt on a second set of tyres and go again. But Yuki Tsunoda down in 19th position is not where he wants to be, and came straight in after that radio call regarding the floor.
And this is what we see, isn't it, time and time again with that second Red Bull seat, is they always have to use up more tyres to get themselves out of Q1, it seems, whether it's Tsunoda, Lawson or even Sergio Perez before he was booted out of the team. And that's not what Red Bull need. They want to have that advantage of giving them more tyres available throughout the rest of the weekend. For Tsunoda, well, he may well have had a bit of an issue with his floor. We heard him come onto the radio saying that. But to be down in 19th, that is rough for Red Bull.
Yeah, what a disparity between the two drivers. You got one, Max Verstappen, in second, and the other one, Yuki Tsunoda, in second to last. No one can drive that car like Max Verstappen. Clearly, he can just throw it around in a different way compared to everyone.
4 minutes and 50 seconds remain then of Q1. We're in Barcelona at the Circuit de Catalunya for round 9 of the Spanish Grand Prix, and we are qualifying ahead of Sunday's Grand Prix, which you can hear in full on BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll be building up to that from 1:45 in the afternoon ahead of Lights Out from 2 o'clock. 66 laps of racing, but before we do that, how will they line up on the grid? That is what we are currently setting. Q1 seeing the slowest 5 drivers eliminated, which right now would be Hülkenberg in the Sauber, Ocon in the Haas, Sainz down there in the Williams, as we've just been discussing, Tsunoda in the Red Bull, and Bortoleto in the Sauber, as we've had that lull period now, and the traffic jam begins to form at the end of the pit lane. Carlos Sainz could be in trouble here as well. He really needs to get a move on to get a lap time. Traffic hasn't been too much of an issue here, but we have seen a bit of an impeding, certainly in the early parts of practice.
Yeah, as the driver sort of shook off the cobwebs and got used to Barcelona again. There were a couple of incidents in pre-practice one, nothing that was particularly noteworthy, but now we're just seeing sort of 8 cars just sat in the pit lane, all trying to get out on track. With 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, it's going to be tight for some of these drivers if they want a pure clean lap.
I'll tell you, it was a good first run from Franco Colapinto, which we can hear from now.
I can't pull away, no problem.
And that might be the reason why there is a bit of a traffic jam in the pit lane. It's Colapinto struggling to pull away. He is moving forward though, but his visor's slightly up. He's looking in his right-hand mirror, then looking back down at the steering wheel. And I think the marshals are now trying to explain to the drivers behind him that he is stuck, but he is moving slowly, but just can't seem to quite find the drive, as now the other cars behind are overtaking. The marshal waving the yellow flag to highlight the caution for Colapinto, but with a problem they will be allowed to make their way around in the pit lane. But for Colapinto, I was just about to say, he had a good first run. He's actually ahead of his teammate Gasly.
Yeah, that was a really weird one, because we sort of saw Colapinto sat in the fast lane there with a queue of drivers behind him. They're not allowed to pass, and they're also very closely stacked together, so they couldn't really get round. Then came on the radio and said that he had a problem, he couldn't pull away, but we could see him driving extremely slowly, about 1 or 2 miles an hour, which just allowed him to get in front of the Ferrari enough of Lewis Hamilton that he could drive around and clear the blockage.
Let's see, I wonder if Colapinto has been able to get back going. He is out on the track now, so he has made it out of the pits. So perhaps panic over for the Argentine driver, who may well have found a little bit more confidence coming into this qualifying session after a really rough Friday. Looked better in this morning's FP3 session and currently sits in 11th place. But you can see how much the track is ramping up, because Gabriel Bortoleto, currently 20th and last, already half a second up on Liam Lawson, who is currently in 15th spot. That's the cut-off period to get yourself up into that top 15. Bortoleto's teammate Hulkenberg has just gone up into 8th spot. Where is the Brazilian going to go? The reigning F2 champion actually matches and pips actually his teammate up into 7th. So that is a big evolution going on with a minute and a half remaining.
Yeah, incredible lap there by Gabriel Bortoleto to go up into 7th. That could put him for one of his best qualifyings yet. Very strong by him. But for those people sat in the pit lane behind Franco Colapinto, your tyre temperatures will have dropped a lot. It's certainly not an optimal position to be in for what could be your final lap in quali.
I don't think Colapinto did get going. The graphics say he's on an out lap, but then we look at the timing screen and it says he has stopped, so that may well be Colapinto's day done. That could be a reprieve for somebody who finds himself right on the bubble as to getting eliminated from this session. Tsunoda needs a good lap, so does Carlos Sainz on home soil, making his way around the track now through Sector 1 and Sector 2. He is up on Colapinto's time. Ocon needing to get himself through. His teammate is currently up inside that top 15. Lance Stroll currently down in 16th. Lewis Hamilton is down in 13th at the moment, and not on the best of laps. We'll see where this puts him. He's coming through the final sector now. Sainz is coming to the line now on home soil. It's only 13th for the Williams driver. His teammate Albon is safe and up in 7th. That puts Colapinto down into the bottom 5. Tsunoda is out there too, just starting a lap now. We'll see what the second Red Bull driver has got. Liam Lawson will be next to cross the line. He's currently down in 18th. His teammate Hadjar is up in 12th. Lawson, who's been overshadowed so far this year, but after Monaco, are we about to see a turnaround for the young Kiwi? Across the line, and he gets himself up into 7th and takes the checkered flag. Good lap from Lawson. And Colapinto, is that going to be disaster though? He's managed to get out of the pit lane, but not by much. Pulled up on the side of the grass. He's out of the car. Is that going to bring a yellow flag out? We'll see. Not yet. Esteban Ocon is on a lap. Lewis Hamilton has managed to get himself up into 10th. That puts Sainz down right on the bubble. Esteban Ocon though is right on the fringes. Could he pip Sainz? He can. Disaster and heartbreak on home soil for Carlos Sainz, who is knocked out in Q1. Ollie Behrman too, trying to get his way through, and will he make it life worse for his teammate? He does. Ocon knocked out by his teammate Behrman. Behrman goes up into 11th. Yuki Tsunoda's teammate Max Verstappen is sitting pretty up in 2nd. This is the sound of the Japanese driver, currently 20th and last, but he's up on time to get himself through into Q2. Across the line for Tsunoda, and he lost it all at the end. What on earth happened for Yuki Tsunoda? He went up to 19th and then immediately pushed down to 20th as Lance Stroll gets himself up into the top 15. What on earth happened there to Yuki Tsunoda? He was looking good on time and he'll start 20th and last.
Yeah, that was super strange. We cut to his onboard and all was looking good. He was green in every single sector until the last two corners, and then comes around and barely improved his time, and his last behind Franco Colapinto, who didn't even set a time on a second set of tyres.
That is bizarre, but that is Q1 done. Hulkenberg just knocked out in 16th, Ocon 17th, Sainz 18th, Colapinto 19th, and the man you're hearing now is Yuki Tsunoda making his way round the track back to the pit lane. He will line up at the Spanish Grand Prix pending any penalties in that final grid spot, whilst his teammate, as usual, is right at the top of the standings. You have to feel, as we're just watching pictures of Franco Colapinto walking forlornly away down the pit lane, he actually had a decent first run in that qualifying session, didn't get the chance to show what he had on a new set of rubber.
Yeah, Franco Colapinto, that's such a shame for him, you know, finally being above his teammate Pierre Gasly in Q1 at the beginning, but then just something breaking down in the pit lane. He managed to cross the pit exit, which is why we saw he was on an outlap, but then when the camera panned back to him, he was just sat a mere meters after that pit exit line and stood outside the car, but seemed to be just behind the barrier, so no yellow flag was needed, which meant that everyone could continue to improve their lap times.
Oh, the last corner was a bit scary.
Well done, man.
That was Ollie Behrman. Last corner a bit scary. You can get a bit ragged through there, can't you?
Yeah, tyres are hanging on at that point, especially on a push lap, so got to keep it flat. The car will be feeling a bit squirrely, but amazing job by Ollie Behrman. Pushed his own teammate out, Esteban Ocon, down in 17th, but Ollie Behrman safely through into Q2.
Lance Stroll hearing using 3 sets of tyres to get himself through into Q2, which he did do, rocketed up to 7th on the timing screens. But to confirm then, out of Q1 goes Nico Hulkenberg in the Sauber, and this man.
And that's SP18.
Yeah, not good.
Carlos Sainz, one of his worst qualifyings of the year, will start 18th for his home Grand Prix, a race that he has scored points in every time he has started the Spanish Grand Prix. He'll have work to do on Sunday from 18th. He joins Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, out-qualified once more by his teammate, the rookie Oliver Behrman.
Well, honestly, I mean, that was pretty clean lap. Yep.
Copy that.
Yuki Tsunoda, pretty disappointed there. 20th for him, behind Franco Colapinto, who walks away helmet off now. And we're going to get a little look. So he did get out of the pit lane, but just absolutely teetering. That's the sound of the Alpine's engine. And then he has a little tap of the steering wheel as the car is switched off. Let's hear from him.
So switch off, try and pull over as best you can. Sorry, mate.
Oh,
Yeah, sadness for Franco Colapinto there.
Yeah, we just got to the end of Q1. Nico Hulkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto and Tsunoda all out of this one. The Red Bull driver, the big man to fall, 20th and last. His teammate was all the way up in second. Q2, moments away. Well, we just heard Colapinto there, the frustrations for him. I mean, out of his control. We were saying it was tough for him at the start of this weekend. He did look like he lacked confidence, but I think he could sniff maybe a better result on the cards there than what he's ultimately been left with.
Yeah, Franco did a great job there. You know, he has been struggling this weekend, but to get a great first lap in, quicker than his teammate Pierre Gasly. Finally finding some confidence, but yeah, heartbreak to have it taken away from a technical issue. We could hear his engine was on, but when he seemed to rev it, there was just no drive.
I don't quite understand why we're going so early.
It's better for this set of tyres. It's the same one you've just aborted the lap on.
Always nice when you hear from the teams exactly what tyres they're using. So technically a scrubbed set of tyres, but one that he was pushing on and then aborted. So that's what Alex Albon is going to get out of the way first on his flying runs initially in this Q2 session.
Yeah, and Alex is just referencing there. He's sat at the end of the pit lane quite early before the session is beginning, so he'll be thinking, why are we sat at the end of the pit lane with tyre blankets not on, losing heat? But his engineer just clarifying him what he's on, what the plan is, and that won't be the set he does his quickest lap time on, hopefully.
Blue skies overhead at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Lovely conditions to go and drive Formula One cars in. Air temperature 29.5 degrees, track temperature 47.5 degrees, as the sun does indeed beat down. We've just had Q1, Nico Hulkenberg of the Sauber out in 16th position for him, which is a shame because his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto was up there inside the top 10. Very good effort for the Brazilian.
Great effort by him, clearly feeling confident around this track, and a track that he's done a lot of mileage at as well. So yeah, see what he can do in this qualifying, and whether a Q3 is potentially on the cards for him. But great job to out-qualify his very experienced teammate.
Yeah, good job from Gabriel Bortoleto so far in the qualifying head-to-head. It's been 5-3 in Hulkenberg's favour, so this will close that gap slightly in the intra-team battle as we get Q2 underway for qualifying ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, which you can hear all 66 laps of on Sunday on BBC Radio 5 Live from 1:45. We'll be building up ahead of lights out at 2 o'clock. Cars out on track though. Alex Albon, as we heard, didn't want to be first out, but he is in the Williams with Oliver Behrman and Fernando Alonso.
Not too many people heading out immediately at the start of Q2. As we know, Alexander Albon is on a used set of soft tyres, so potentially a little warm-up for him, but he will be bolting on another set to try and get into Q3 a bit later on.
Fernando Alonso making his way through the left-hander of turn 10 on an outlap, gearing up for his first flyer. Dubbed himself one of the unluckiest drivers a couple of races ago, still without points. His last pole coming some 222 races ago. He's just dipped back into the pits. His last race win came at this very circuit back in 2013, a track that he has been on pole at before, back in 2006. I'm not sure he's in the running for pole position this afternoon, but could he get another top 6 starting position, as he has started 5th and 6th in the last 2 consecutive races. But here we go then, Ollie, for a lap with Alex Albon around this circuit. Through the right-hander of turn 3 we go.
A little bit of a moment there through turn 3 for Alexander Albon. High speed there, a bit of snap oversteer, managed to hold it on. Into turn 4, hard on the brakes again, just mid-corner under big load, the rear of the car stepping out. Bring it back to the right for turn 5. Downhill here on the brakes, getting nice in and on the throttle. No movement through there, bit of a difficult corner with understeer. Into turn 7, the track starts to come back up, nicely making the apex. No movement through there, where we've seen Charles Leclerc getting a bit squirrely. Flat nearly through turn 9, little bit of a lift there, not going too wide over the sharp curve edges there. Heavy on the brakes into turn 10, another super heavy braking zone here, not going too wide, where we've seen some guys over missing the braking. Around the long turn right, turn 12 right-hander into what is and what should be 2 flat out last corners, and yeah, car looking on the limit. Few movements through the steering and the high speed. The rear not looking pretty comfortable as he crosses the line with a 1:13.1.
First lap on the board, all drivers out there, well the first 3 that went out there on a used set of tyres. We know Albon's were from Q1 in an aborted lap. Behrman, we believe, on a used set of tyres as well, making his way round the final corner. Let's see where this puts the Haas driver, out qualifying his teammate Esteban Ocon, fastest in the final sector, still not quickest overall, couldn't quite pip Alex Albon's time. Quite a big disparity, actually, almost half a second between Albon and Behrman after their opening runs. But now Verstappen, Norris, Stroll, Lawson, Bortoleto, Gasly, Alonso and Hadjar are all out there again, still waiting for Piastri, Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc and Hamilton to make their way out onto the track.
And just to clarify why you might see Albon and Behrman doing some lap times on what look to be used tyres, especially as Albon didn't actually know what the plan was. It could be because the teams and the engineers have made some very minor adjustments in between Q1 and Q2. They want the drivers to do a lap so that they can see on the data exactly what that's changed and whether they think it would be good to keep on the car for another new set of softs later on, or whether they should go back to the original setup.
The sole remaining Red Bull, Max Verstappen, making his way on his first flyer. Just to come back, if you're just joining us, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda has been knocked out 20th and last. I mean, this is an absolute disaster for Red Bull, right? This is surely, they can't have these kind of performances, and it's always with that second car. Is Verstappen now fastest of anybody in that first sector?
Yeah, we see it time and time again, and there doesn't really seem to be an answer of what on earth is going on there. No matter who they put in, no matter what the pedigree of driver it was before they get to Red Bull, they're just having this issue of where the car is seemingly undrivable. And is that, you know, a car issue, or is that a team issue that they put in? There seems to be no answers yet.
Either way, Red Bull right now a one-car team. Verstappen fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Bortoleto is fastest of anyone in the first sector. This is good. I was quite pleased to see Gabriel Bortoleto running well. We don't get to talk about him too much, the Brazilian driver, the reigning Formula 2 champion, but he's showing rather well. I wonder if he stuck a fresh set of soft tyres on straight away. We'll see what he's got to show for him. Verstappen goes to the top of the times by over 7/10 of a second. A reminder, this is Q2, so once again it's the slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated. Still waiting for everybody to set their first lap times, but Bortoleto, a strong Q1, out-qualifying his teammate. In fact, well, Bortoleto's best qualifying of the season so far has been 13th place. That was in Miami a couple of races ago. So let's see if he can do any better this time around.
Yeah, it's been quite a muted start to the season for him. I mean, we know that their car is not the quickest, but he's done a good first lap in this Q2, going to second place with a 1 minute 13.0, about 6.5 tenths off that of Max Verstappen, as Pierre Gasly slots into second place with a 1:12.6, 3 tenths off the leader.
It's Verstappen, Gasly, Hadjar, Bortoleto and Lawson, the top 5, but still lap times to come from the 2 McLaren drivers, the first of which is about to come across the line. Round the final corner comes Lando Norris off the back of pole in Monaco. Pole at this track last year, goes to the top of the times in this Q2 session with a 1:12.0. We wait to see what his teammate has got, along with the 2 Mercedes drivers, the 2 Ferrari drivers, and the sound you're hearing now, Fernando Alonso, now the only remaining Spanish driver in this qualifying session, with Carlos Sainz knocked out in Q1. All the hopes rest on Fernando Alonso, who puts himself up into 3rd.
Always nice to have your home Grand Prix, and as a fan to have 2 drivers at it. So if one has the woes like Carlos Sainz has done, you've still got Fernando Alonso to cheer on as qualifying continues.
Yeah, it'll be Sainz's worst qualifying of the year for him, so he will not be happy to see his teammate Alex Albon, who is currently up in 9th position, sailing through. Hamilton crossed the line in that Ferrari, actually quicker on the first runs compared to his teammate Charles Leclerc, only by a couple of hundredths of a thousandth a second, I should say, up into 4th ahead of Leclerc. Piastri, though, knocks them all down a peg, including his teammate, and is the first man to get into the 1:11s. Oscar Piastri, 1:11.998, with Antonelli about to cross the line next, puts himself into 8th.
McLaren looking very strong here in all the sessions so far. Certainly don't seem to be sweating too much, at least metaphorically, with any regulations that are going on P1 and P2 at the moment.
Everyone with a lap time then on the board, with just over 7 minutes to go of this second part of qualifying. It's Oscar Piastri sitting pretty at the top, just 0.5 tenth clear of Lando Norris. Max Verstappen 3.5 tenths back in 3rd. Then it's Russell and Hamilton the top 5, with Leclerc, Alonso, Gasly, Antonelli and Isaac Hadjar rounding out the top 10. And then currently in that elimination zone is the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto in 11th, Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls, with the Williams of Alex Albon 13th, ahead of Lance Stroll Stroll in the Aston Martin 14th, and Ollie Bearman down in 15th in the Haas. We have already lost in Q1. Nico Hulkenberg, Sauber, Esteban Ocon's Haas. Carlos Sainz, the big heartbreak for the fans trackside in the Williams, down in 18th. Franco Colapinto, so frustrated. There's a contingent for him out there in Spain this afternoon. Couldn't get that second lap in Q1 going with an issue with the car. The team have said they're going to be investigating that once they get that Alpine back to the garage.
Dark clouds in the distance over 13. Copy that.
Now that was George Russell. Some dark clouds in the distance at 13. An illusion of rain. Wasn't it here a couple of years ago during the race, I think it was, where George Russell felt like he was feeling spots of rain, and then it turned out it was actually just some sweat from inside his helmet?
Yeah, I remember that radio call. He said he could see drops of rain on the visor, but it was his sweat on the inside of the visor. So not quite the same thing. We can see those super dark clouds just over the exit of T13, but with the wind direction at the moment.
I'm happy to give Kimi a tow if needed.
Interesting radio call there from George Russell again. He's in P4, looking pretty safe at the moment with Kimi Antonelli, his teammate, down in 9th, and just saying that he might offer him a tow, which is very nice of him.
He's not wrong. There are some ominous clouds in the distance. There's the mountain range in the distance and the cloud coming in, but let's see if that does have any effect. The air temperature is still about just under 30 degrees, track temperature 48 degrees, the humidity as well about 39% too, so feeling the heat out there in Barcelona.
It's looking quite warm out there, and with the wind direction the way it's going, I'm not seeing much chance of this rain coming over to the track. It would spice things up and it would be nice to see, but it looks unlikely.
Well, according to the official Formula One radar, which is no BBC weather app, I'll tell you that, it was 0% chance of rain coming into this session. So we'll see if George Russell has got the better radar or not come the next 4.5 minutes or so. This is Q2, so this is all about finding yourself through into that top 10 shootout and the battle for pole position. We've had that little lull period now as we await the cars to head back out for their final flyers. The cars in trouble: Ollie Bearman, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, Liam Lawson and Gabriel Bortoleto, with Isaac Hadjar and Kimi Antonelli down in 9th and 10th, so not too far away from a risk. Indeed, why we heard George Russell on the radio there saying he's happy to give Kimi a tow if needs be. Russell up in 4th, Antonelli down in 9th position.
Isaac Hadjar just sat in 10th position at the moment, barely scraped through into Q2. He was in 15th at the end of Q1, so just on the edges, and again at the moment just on the edge of making Q3. So himself and his teammate Liam Lawson will definitely be looking to get into Q3, as they've both had pretty decent practice sessions so far this weekend. Well, pretty decent triple header so far, it has to be said, for the Racing Bulls drivers. For Isaac Hadjar, 2 top 9 starts in the last 2 races, 9th in Imola, followed by top 5 in Monaco, converting those both into points for Hadjar. He actually now finds himself inside the top 10 of the drivers' standings, whilst Liam Lawson managed to get his first top 10 start in Monaco last week, and then managed to pick off 1 position to finish in 8th spot to pick up his first points. And the fact there was a double point score for Racing Bulls sees them overhaul Aston Martin for 7th in the Constructors' Championship. So Racing Bulls going very well with both drivers, while the big sister team, Red Bull, well, they go well in the hands of Max Verstappen. If you're wondering where Yuki Tsunoda is, well, he's out 20th and last, with seemingly no explanation about how he can be so slow. Yeah, really tough for Yuki. We heard him at the end of Q1 there going that he didn't know where the time was and that he thought it was a great lap. So honestly, that is one of the worst positions as a driver that you can be in, is when you end it and you feel like you've just given it your all and you are nowhere, and with no explanation why. That's a really tough situation to come back from.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing from Yuki and the team after qualifying is over. But cars then making their way back out onto the circuit. Everybody except for Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, Norris and Piastri, who will be peeling out of the pits shortly. Lance Stroll used up a lot of tyres coming into Q2, making his way through the right-hander of turn 3 on the soft tyre, as is everybody. Stroll, who has scored 100% of Aston Martin's points so far, has the Canadian, but had a bit of a torrid time in Monaco, 19th place with a grid penalty too. Managed to start inside the top 8 in Imola with upgrades being brought to that car, but Adrian Newey paying a visit trackside for the first time in Monaco last week, working with the team. Full focus mainly on the 2026 car, with a few lunchtime meetings to try and see what they can still get out of this 2025 car that Stroll and Alonso are running. 9,000ths of a second up in the middle sector is Lance Stroll, currently down in 14th, looking to get inside that top 10. First time, well, he did it in Imola, hasn't done it since the Chinese Sprint. So we'll be looking to get his third top 10 start of the year. Crosses the line and only manages 12th spot for Lance Stroll. But quicker times coming through. Kimi Antonelli now actually a little slower in sector 1, but that's compared to Piastri. Personal best through the middle sector, round the final corner for the Italian rookie, and across the line improves, but only up to 8th place, and that will keep him in danger, will it, for the Italian rookie, as we're getting into the closing stages now. The top 5 then not feeling the need to come out. They will not make their final lap, so everybody down from Charles Leclerc feeling like they need to go again. Albon will cross the line next. He improves up into the top 10. That puts Hadjar down into the elimination zone. We'll see Oliver Behrman now embark on his final flyer. Gabriel Bortoleto almost gets inside the top 10. He'll have to settle for 11th, but it's looking good for the Brazilian for his best qualifying so far this year. But there are still cars to set their final lap times. The sound you're hearing now, Isaac Hadjar will be one of them. Can he get a third consecutive top 10 start? He's down in 12th. Across the line for the French rookie, up into the top 6 once again, continuing to impress. But what about his teammate? Can Racing Bulls do the double? 2 races in a row, 2 cars inside the top 10. Lawson's down in 14th. Across the line, no, he won't be able to do it. He can only manage 13th ahead of Stroll. We'll see if Ollie Behrman can make his day any worse. Alex Albon looks like he will be knocked out of this session. He's down in 11th. He's out there but not on a lap. So Pierre Gasly will be the man that Ollie Behrman could well displace. The Alpine driver is the one at risk. It's all on Behrman now. Can he find the time? Personal best for the British rookie in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Looking a little airy around the final corner. Across the line, loses a big chunk of time in that final corner. Gasly lives to fight another day. Behrman down in 15th. Well, at the end of Q2, as the checkered flag is out, it's Alex Albon in 11th. Gabriel Bortoleto still with his best Grand Prix start of the season in 12th. Liam Lawson 13th. Lance Stroll 14th, with Oliver Behrman down in 15th.
Great job by Gabriel Bortoleto there. New best qualifying for him in 12th position. Liam Lawson and Lance Stroll will be upset with that, seeing both of their teammates get through into Q3. And Ollie Behrman, will want more, but he has still out-qualified his more experienced teammate of Esteban Ocon. As a rookie is always something to look as a positive.
Just getting a little look at Alex Albon. Did it all go away from him on his final flyer coming through the right-hander? It's, well, just gets a little unstable in the rear.
They were dirty pass. They knew what they were doing. Purposely so in Sector 3.
So there was a car, might well have been a Haas, on the inside as Albon was making his way out the exit of turn 12, but well off the racing line. So if there was anything untoward, it might have been a little earlier, which we haven't quite had a full view of.
Yeah, Alex not happy with the positioning of that car in Sector 3. Although, like you say, he was quite a long way ahead and off of the racing line. Albon got quite a big snap of oversteer in turn 12, like we had seen before that. Williams sort of struggling in that combined corner. But he has out-qualified both Hasses, so I'm not too sure what Haas would have stood to gain on that.
He's also still waiting in the car, is Alex Albon, taking a little bit of time to get out as the final couple of cars make their way back to the pits. I think that's really encouraging for Gabriel Bortoleto. Let's hear from Behrman first.
Double gauche held with the used tyre.
confirmation Behrman was on a used tyre then. Will have to settle for 50, but he does out-qualify his teammate. It's actually been a pretty rough ride for Ollie Behrman in this triple header. He feels like he's shown a lot of pace, but hasn't got the results.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Well done, everyone. We'll build up for tomorrow.
I think you've absolutely nailed it on the head, Ollie. Understated, bit of a muted start for Gabriel Bortoleto, but almost we kind of were expecting that given the car and the team that he's in and the transition period that they're going through. So a result like this is actually massive for him.
Yeah, he seems very happy with that on the radio, doesn't he? Yeah, difficult start to the season for both of those drivers. That team sort of struggling, I think, much more looking into the future and what holds there. They're just plodding around this year and seeing what they can get if they get lucky. So, yeah, he's going to be lining up on the grid 12th tomorrow. You never know what happens. A bit of weather, a bit of bad luck from people ahead of him in the race. Could be scrambling around for his best result of the year.
Well, which has been so far a couple of 14th place finishes, last time out in Monaco and China before that. Scored points here at this track last year in Formula 2 with a 5th place in the sprint race and a 10th place in the feature, but still finding his feet a little bit, showing those flashes of pace is the reigning F2 champ, none more so than this afternoon, up in 12th just behind Alex Albon. Through then into Q3, we will still keep the grandstands full because the Spanish fans will still be cheering on Fernando Alonso, unlike Carlos Sainz, who is now out of qualifying. But Alonso has made it through inside the top 10 along with both Mercedes drivers. Two McLarens of Piastri and Norris, the one remaining Red Bull of Max Verstappen, the two Ferraris of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, and actually sneaky result and looking good so far for Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Has managed to get himself up inside the top 10. Started inside the top 10 in Imola last weekend. In Monaco there was of a one to forget for Alpine and Gasly, because he hasn't scored points of any kind since the sprint back in Miami. His last Grand Prix points finish, and his first and only so far, was 7th in Bahrain. So Gasly really wanted to get some more points on the board, if only to help his team try and close the gap to Aston Martin ahead. Yeah, Q3 just about to get started in the battle for pole position. It's Oscar Piastri who has so far had the advantage. Out in Q2, Alex Albon, Gabriel Bortoleto, Liam Lawson, Lance Stroll and Ollie Behrman. But the battle for pole is now on, and well, it is between the two McLarens. So far, so good for the two McLaren drivers. Piastri managing to get into the 111s there. The pole lap from last year was a 1:11.383. Piastri in Q2 was a 1:11.9. Reckon we can get down to that?
I think we could get down into the low 111s, 110s, but let's not rule Max Verstappen out.
I know.
He's in third and he's still there. That top 5 looking pretty similar to what we'd expect. The two McLarens, Max Verstappen, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc, so finally potentially getting to grips on it. But yeah, if we've seen Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri make mistakes on their flying laps earlier in the weekend, Max Verstappen's right there to capitalise on it.
He certainly is. Rule him out if you dare for Max Verstappen, but just the one Red Bull car left, so can't have that second car to help provide a tow perhaps, which we saw George Russell was willing to offer out for teammate Kimi Antonelli. That is something you could get a decent effect from here down the start-finish straight. I
was just thinking if that was maybe a little bit of a tactical play from George, you know, oh yeah, I'll offer Kimi Antonelli a tow at the end of Q2, but I'd expect it back in Q3 please. But that didn't happen. Kimi Antonelli got through into Q3 by himself. Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
We shall see. Well, we're just waiting for the green light to come on at the end of the pits. Grandstands really packed full. So still the popularity sky high for the Spanish Grand Prix. We'll have 2 races in Spain next year, with the Madrid street track coming on to the calendar. And then the future after 2026 for Catalonia looks a little uncertain. We shall see how that unfolds. But with 2 Spanish drivers on the grid, Spanish-speaking driver too on top of that, certainly the popularity very much strong in the nation.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso keeping the Spanish hopes high, finishing P8 in that Q2, safely through into Q3 now, and we'll be seeing to what he can do in that Aston Martin.
Is it me, or has the cloud come in a bit? It's looking a little darker.
It's getting closer, but I'm checking all the weather radars, and they're
You actually are as well. Wow.
They're not showing anything, but our eyes are telling us a different story.
Sometimes all you got to do is stick your hand out and have a feel of if there's a few drops of rain. The radars can't always tell you the basics, but Q3 is underway. 11 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock, and you can hear some cars starting up their engines, about to be released from the pit lane. The two Ferrari drivers not in a rush to get themselves out there. The McLaren drivers peeling out into the pits, along with Pierre Gasly just edging his nose into the fast lane before being given the all clear. But the battle for pole position is on then, and your place inside the top 10 as we set the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix. A reminder, we have already lost half the field. Albon is 11th ahead of Bortoleto. Lawson, Stroll, Behrman 15th ahead of Hulkenberg in 16th. Esteban Ocon in 17th. Carlos Sainz 18th. Franco Colapinto 19th. And Yuki Tsunoda 20th and last. This top 10, this Q3 session, containing the two McLarens of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, the one Red Bull of Max Verstappen, the two Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, the one Alpine of Pierre Gasly, the two Ferraris of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, the one Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, and the one Racing Bulls of Isaac Hadjar. And I think another word has to be said, Ollie, for Isaac Hadjar. Obviously, we don't know his final grid position yet, but again, inside that top 10, honestly, I think I heard Christian Horner saying in the build-up to this weekend he has been the rookie of the season so far. If you just forget that little blip at the start of the year, he's been outstanding.
Yeah, he really has made it into another Q3, out-qualified his teammate, and not only that, he's fighting against Liam Lawson in the teammate battle at the moment, but at the start of the year it was Yuki Tsunoda. He had a nice experienced teammate to work with who got taken away from him. So Isaac is now leading that team as a rookie and performing outstandingly. Yeah, solidly into Q3, you know, a great appearance for him. The team need points, but I don't think he's just going to be in Q3. I think he's going to be fighting for a good position here.
Well, let's see. A very warm welcome, by the way, to those joining us on 5 Sports Extra. Now that the tennis is done and dusted, you've joined the action here in Spain. We're at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and we're into the final part of qualifying ahead of Sunday's Grand Prix. Who will get pole position? Where will you stack up inside that top 10? Guiding you through the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the former F2, F3 and Alpine F1 development driver, Oliver Caldwell. We've lost so far Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll and Oliver Behrman in the second part of qualifying, and in the first part it was Nico Hulkenberg, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, the big name to fall down in 18th, along with Franco Colapinto, and a disaster for Yuki Tsunoda and Red Bull off the pace down in 20th and last. But through then, inside the top 10, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, Gasly, Hadjar and Fernando Alonso, all taking to the track for 1-2 final flying laps. As the sun has started to ebb away slightly, air temperature 29 degrees, track temperature cooling to 44.1 degrees. There are some dark clouds looming in the distance, slowly getting closer, but if the radars are to be believed, will not affect us in this qualifying session. We shall see. First flying lap about to be completed for Oscar Piastri, who has looked like he has had the pace over teammate Lando Norris as he comes across the line and takes that first position. First lap on the board for him is a 1:11.836. Immediately gets out the way of his teammate Lando Norris, who now embarks on his first final flyer. I wonder if there's a bit of teamwork going on there as well, with some help of a tow, but Piastri was quick to get out the way.
Yeah, I would say actually the opposite. Piastri came across the line, clocked his lap time straight to the right-hand side and slammed the anchors on to make sure not to give a tow to his teammate Lando Norris, who then was starting a lap. Oscar Piastri very quickly out of the pits at the start of Q3. You know, like you say, there's not any rain planned, but I don't think they want to hang around just in case. As we see Lando Norris purple in Sector 1, heading into the end of Sector 2 through the fast T9, no movement there, no issues. DRS open down into T10.
hits the brake. He is 1,000th of a second up on his teammate Piastri through the middle sector. Norris fastest of anybody through the first sector. Russell's put himself up into second ahead of Verstappen. Hamilton fourth. Antonelli, Gasly, the top six. Still waiting lap times from Leclerc, Hadjar, Alonso and Lando Norris. After his first flyer complete, crosses the line. It's provisional pole for Lando Norris by 17 thousandths of a second. A 1:11.819 ahead of teammate Oscar Piastri. Oh, well, there's the first blow for Lando Norris to strike in this final quali.
I don't know if he really wants to be first going into potentially a second set of tyres, because now Oscar Piastri pits. He's going to put on another set and he has a goal. He knows he's not quickest. He's going to be really pushing to pass. And I just love this battle between the two McLaren drivers, as we hear from George Russell.
I still don't understand why we didn't do what we discussed. 2 tenths, too conservative, too conservative.
Well, interesting, George Russell not happy with whatever they're planning in their strategy. I wonder, is that perhaps the use of a toe? Can that give you 0.2 of a second? And George Russell then did offer the idea of a toe to Kimi Antonelli in Q2, so I wonder if they're deciding, no, we don't want to bother with that, it's too risky to try and orchestrate it. Let's see, Russell's up there in third at the moment, Antonelli's down in seventh, back in the pits, both of them, along with Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Now, getting a look at Oscar Piastri on his first fly. Actually had to overtake his teammate coming through the right-hander of turn 12, and this is the sound of Piastri coming across his final flyer. Came across the line.
Watch for Lando opening close behind.
Cheeky.
Cheeky from Lando Norris, trying to get himself maybe those extra couple of tenths that a toe could bring. Piastri, wise to it.
Yeah, we saw Oscar Piastri going tight through the racing line on his first push lap through turn 12, and Lando Norris was wide, but immediately as Oscar Piastri went past him, Lando opened the throttle and was straight in the aerodynamic flow behind him, trying to get that little bit of time, but Oscar was wise to it, and yeah, like we discussed, quick to go over to the right and slam on the brakes to take away as much of the advantage as he could.
Well, just last 2 lap times, first final flyers from Alonso and Hadjar to be set, but after those first ones, you look down the order, Russell's up in third behind the two McLarens, Leclerc fourth, Max Verstappen half a second adrift, down in fifth behind the Mercedes, behind the Ferrari. I know it's a first run, but time to find for the Dutchman in this second run.
Yeah, not quite where I expected Max Verstappen to be honest. Fourth maybe, but not behind the Ferrari, so great lap there by Leclerc. But yeah, looking to George Russell, 2.5 tenths off the McLaren. If what he was unhappy about was Kimi Antonelli potentially giving him a toe, I think that could really put him in the fight if they did it properly. That would certainly be a couple of tenths there.
Let's see, it's just over 4 minutes remaining of this final qualifying session as we set the grid and find out who will start the Spanish Grand Prix on pole position. Spanish hearts breaking earlier on in this session. We lost Carlos Sainz in the first part of qualifying, but we still got the wily old fox, Fernando Alonso. There are the cheers from the crowd as he comes across the line. His first flyer, he's up inside the top 5, puts Verstappen down into SIG, ahead of Hamilton and Antonelli, with Gasly in 9th. Isaac Hadjar's not set a lap time yet, so you would think Racing Bulls are just going to do one run for the French rookie, as 3.5 minutes to go before we get this final run out the way. The battle for pole is on as they head out once again onto the circuit. This 4.657 kilometre track, just over 2.8 miles, 14 turns, 6 to the left and 8 to the right, with a maximum speed of over 320 kilometres an hour. And it's day done by the looks of things for Charles Leclerc, who is out of his car, and possibly for this man too.
That was strong, very good, well done.
That's Fernando Alonso, who is cheering for his top 5 position right now. There's still 2 minutes and 46 seconds on the clock. He's waving to the crowds like it's all done and dusted. Is it just one lap? And that's all he can do for Fernando Alonso. Doesn't feel maybe that there's more time in that car. We shall see. The battle for pole position, though, is well and truly on. It's Lando Norris with provisional pole, up against his teammate Oscar Piastri, who has looked blindingly quick too this weekend. George Russell just 2.5 tenths back from the McLaren drivers. Could Mercedes try something with a tow with Kimi Antonelli to help Russell maybe cause a bit of trouble for the 2 McLaren drivers? Russell is actually still in the pits with 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Doesn't look like we'll see Charles Leclerc. He was well and truly out of the car. Alonso comes back into the pits. Verstappen's down in 6th, half a second adrift. Unlike the reigning champion we know, has he got more time in that Red Bull? Lewis Hamilton is down in 7th with Antonelli and Gasly the top 9. Isaac Hadjar in 10th will have 1 flying lap to set his place. Which way is this going, Ollie Caldwell?
It's got to be the way of the McLarens. What an odd quali. You got Charles Leclerc in 4th, not even bothering to do another run. He's got out the car and seems quite happy with that. Fernando Alonso in 5th, did that time and celebrating like he's just won a race. So incredible job by him in his home race as well, celebrating in front of the fans. I think that's worthy.
Max Verstappen just gearing up on his outlap. Isaac Hadjar currently making his way through the middle sector. Going well so far for the French rookie. As Lando Norris then embarks on his final flying run down towards turn 1 into the braking zone. The DRS rear wing slot slams shut, sweeps through the right, then the left-hander, then it's another long sweeping right-hander, fully committed through there. Nice line for Lando Norris. Piastri now embarks on his lap. A very warm welcome to listeners on BBC Radio 5 Live. You join us in the final 30 seconds of qualifying ahead of Sunday's Spanish Grand Prix. The advantage currently with Lando Norris, who sits on provisional pole, but he made a mistake in the middle sector and is down on time. Meanwhile, his teammate Oscar Piastri, the current leader in the championship, is smashing his lap through and up 2 tenths in the middle sector. 1 final corner to go through the right-hander for the Papaya McLaren of Norris. Across the line, he improves his lap time, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri, fastest in the first sector, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. This is the sound of the Australian coming across the line, and it's pole position for Oscar Piastri. Can anyone find a way through to the McLarens? Piastri has 2 tenths over his own teammate in Lando Norris. Russell is 3rd. Kimi Antonelli of the Mercedes takes the checkered flag in 4th. Charles Leclerc has called time early on this session. This is his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who's currently 10th and last. Can he find his way up the order? Max Verstappen is the car ahead of him. Hamilton up to 3rd. Where did he find that lap time? Incredible from the 7-time champion, but he's still half a second adrift, and then he's knocked down as Verstappen finds the speed, but only enough for 3rd fastest. Verstappen can't touch the 2 McLarens, with George Russell next across the line, and manages to dock Hamilton 1 more position down into 5th. But that is qualifying done and done. Ollie Caldwell, the former F2 and Alpine F1 development driver, is alongside me. He left it right to the end, but dominant lap from Oscar Piastri.
Incredible, yeah. He's been very strong throughout this whole weekend, and he's just pulled it out of the bag there in qualifying. 2 tenths up on his teammate. Max Verstappen in 3rd, finally back up to where we thought he'd be, and George Russell doing the exact same lap time as him, albeit just a bit later.
And that's everyone done. Here you are, Oscar. Well done, buddy. Pole position.
Nice work, very nicely done. It's quite some turnaround from last year, so well done everyone. Good effort so far. Let's have ourselves some fun tomorrow. Thank you.
Qualified 10th here last year, did Oscar Piastri. Takes his third pole of the season for the Australian, who leads the championship by 3 points. He will start the Spanish Grand Prix on pole alongside his teammate Lando Norris. It's a long run down to turn 1 though. Max Verstappen third, ahead of George Russell, Lewis Hamilton in 5th, Kimi Antonelli, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly is 8th ahead of Isaac Hadjar, and Fernando Alonso rounds out the top 10. You can join us as well for Lights Out for the Grand Prix. We'll be on 5 Live, build up from 1:45 on Sunday, ahead of those lights going out at 2 o'clock. Oscar Piastri out of the car, then waving to the fans. A mighty lap, 2/10 is what he found in the end to best Lando Norris. They shake hands, a pat on the back for both of them. Max Verstappen as well. Well, he found the time. At one point, he was half a second adrift, Ollie. Still, though, a few tenths back in the end, but managed to claw his way out of it in the closing stages.
Yeah, I think really that's what we expected looking at the times for this weekend. Bit of a mistake potentially from Max Verstappen earlier on, but yeah, Oscar Piastri pulling it out of the bag and just really showing some dominance to his teammate Lando Norris there, calling him cheeky earlier in Q3 where Lando did try and get a tow. I believe they swapped that round for that final session, but Lando Norris there looking, yeah, pat on the back to Oscar Piastri, but visor was closed. The body language is not happy from him.
Looking at the rear, or as he tries to actually unbuckle his helmet first. Bit of frustration showing for Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton climbs out of his car. In the end, out-qualifies his teammate Charles Leclerc, which doesn't happen too often. Only the second time Hamilton has out-qualified Charles Leclerc, who ran out of tyres, along with Fernando Alonso, which is why we didn't see Leclerc for one final run, and Fernando Alonso just doing one run in the end, enough for 10th fastest, out-qualified by Isaac Hadjar and Pierre Gasly. Good results for the Alpine driver in particular, Pierre Gasly, starting inside that top 8 position. And for Pierre Gasly, who currently only has one Grand Prix point scored to his name, well, certainly we'll be hoping to add to that. But let's hear from our pole sitter, who'll be talking to the 2016 Formula One world champion Nico Rosberg in a few moments' time. A man, of course, who knows what it's like to race and win around here. It's actually not Nico Rosberg, it's going to be Alex Brundle instead. If they want to speak, Alex Brundle will be doing the interviews. He's starting with Oscar Piastri.
Oscar Piastri, an outstanding lap at the end of qualifying for the biggest pole margin of the year. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, very happy. It's been a good weekend so far. Didn't start off in the best way. We're struggling a little bit, but I think last night we found some pace, and today the car's been mega, and I feel like I've been able to put in some good laps as well. So thank you to the team for all the hard work. This was a pretty miserable scene 12 months ago, so to have turned it around in the best way is a great result.
Speaking of finding pace, it was that very last lap in Q3 where you jumped ahead. Where do you think you found the time over the earlier lap without the cheeky toe available, of course?
Yeah, I mean, I improved quite a lot in turn 1 actually, and then there was a couple other places in the lap where I'd been struggling a bit all day. I don't know if I necessarily did better, but no, it all just came to me mainly in the first half of the lap, and then the second half I could just about hang on. It wasn't the perfect lap, but I think around here with the tyres going off so much through the lap, it's very tough to do that. So I'm very, very happy with all the work we put in.
2 McLarens across the front row of the grid tomorrow puts you in a great position strategically for what looks to be an extremely strategic Grand Prix.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting one tomorrow, and I'm pretty glad that I'm starting from pole. It's obviously a long run to turn 1, so got to make sure we try and get a good start tomorrow. But no, very proud of the work we've done today and starting in the best spot. So I can't thank the team enough, and hopefully we can have some fun tomorrow.
Outstanding lap. Congratulations,
Thank
Oscar.
You. Cheers.
Bringing in Lando Norris. Lando, early in the session, it looked like the pole position would be yours, but not quite there in that final run. Do you think you could have had pole today?
Oscar drove very well. I think the pace was definitely there, just a couple of little mistakes, but Yeah, didn't do it, and Oscar, like I said, was driving well all weekend. So a good result for the team, a nice 1-2, and an interesting start for tomorrow.
We saw a little bit of gamesmanship between the two of you early on in Q3 with regards to the toe. 3 points between you coming into this weekend in the championship. Is that a taster of the battle that we're going to see tomorrow?
I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully it's just an easy race for me. But no, I expect it. It's a long run down to turn 1. Normally always interesting. I mean, we've got a lot of quick guys behind us, so we won't count them out. But no, good result for today. I'm happy.
Looks like you're going to have to keep hold of that left front throughout the race tomorrow. Do you have a good race car underneath you?
We do. We have the best one.
Looking forward to that then, Lando. Thanks very much. Max Verstappen, great job to take third position in the session. Was that everything that the car had today?
I guess so. I mean, I think we were lacking all weekend, of course, compared to them, but I think we executed well. And I think, that third position is, I think, where we more or less should be, even though I think it's quite close behind as well. So, yeah, it's fun. I mean, around here, squeezing everything out of the car. The grip is always quite good, even with the hot temperatures, but... yeah, let's see tomorrow what we can do from there. Exactly the same lap time on our timing screens as George Russell. You, of course, setting the lap time first. You've been talking a little bit about the balance of that Red Bull through the weekend so far. How much work did you have to do overnight to make that car, to put yourself in the position to be third today? Not too much. I mean, I think we had quite a decent Friday, actually, and we just made some final changes to the car. But yeah, of course, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to really challenge for the pole. But yeah, it's okay. Do you have a good race car underneath you for tomorrow, starting from the second row on the grid? Yeah, I'll try my best, but they will be tough to beat. But we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Have a great one, Max. Right.
Alex Brundle doing the talking there to Max Verstappen. Third, Lando Norris. Second, and your pole man, Oscar Piastri. Was that one of the best shootouts for pole we've had so far this year, Oliver Caldwell?
It certainly went down to the wire. I think that was really anybody's game. Well, if you're in a McLaren, maybe, between the two of them. But yeah, Lando Norris certainly, I think, wanted that pole position. He's looking, he said he's happy with that, but his body language and smile tells me a bit otherwise. And the way he sort of walks off from those pictures from Oscar Piastri. But yeah, great to see the two McLarens looking strong. Max Verstappen and George Russell matching his time exactly, just doing it a couple of seconds later, which put him down in fourth, but very close looking at down that grid.
Well, look, it's a long run from pole down to turn 1, over 600 metres. Anything can happen in that run down, but it will be the two McLarens that have the best seat in the house. Oscar Piastri starts on pole alongside Lando Norris. Verstappen third ahead of Russell, with Hamilton rounding out the top 5. Then it's Kimi Antonelli. Charles Leclerc is 7th ahead of Pierre Gasly. Isaac Hadjar 9th, with Fernando Alonso rounding out the top 10. Missing out in that lower half of the field was Albon, Bortoletto, Lawson, Stroll, Behrman, the top 15, with Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto and Yuki Tsunoda 20th and last. That is how they will start, pending any penalties for the Spanish Grand Prix. 66 laps for that, which you can hear in full on BBC Radio 5 Live. Tomorrow on Sunday, we'll be building up from 1:45 in the afternoon ahead of lights out from 2 o'clock. Me and Ollie will be doing an analysis of that qualifying session for the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be available on BBC Sounds a little later on this evening, wherever you get your pods. But that just about does it for us from Spain. Qualifying done ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix. Thank you for your company, Oliver Caldwell, and wherever you are listening to us from. We are going to go, for listeners on Sports Extra 2, we're going to send you to Lancashire Lightning taking on Notts Outlaws in the T20 Blast. That's on Sports Extra 2, so you will join the cricket before F1. That is us over and out. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.